Welcome to r/Reddit Revenge. This is a story of someone getting back at someone with revenge after being wronged. And today we have 3 great stories. So subscribe, hit the like button, and let's begin. The first story. After years of resentment over lending her money and never getting it back, I visited my cousin at her workplace. I didn't tip her for my meal, which she noticed and confronted me about. The second story. A salesman at a Toyota dealership refuses to tell a father and son, who are dressed in construction attire, the prices of the cars they're interested in. Salesman is fired. The third story. Obnoxious neighbors and his friends blocked the street off with their big vans while workmen were trying to clear up. They blocked his house in with barriers so he couldn't get in or park his van anywhere near. Today's first story is I refused to tip my cousin. I grew up in a small town with around 150 people. As a 17 female, I got my first job working at McDonald's for $3.25/$4.25 an hour when minimum wage increased. 1992. I drove a truck my dad gave me with bad gas mileage. I had a younger cousin who grew up 2 miles away. She was 14 at the time this happened. This was back in 1992. A rock band we both liked was going to play in a large town about 3 hours away. This was pre-internet, so to buy the tickets we had to drive to the mall 60 miles away where Ticketmaster was located. My cousin begged to come with me, got permission from her parents, and I agreed as long as she could pay for her tickets. About a month later, we drove to the mall to buy tickets, and she admitted she hadn't been able to earn enough babysitting money, but she had plans to get a job in a few months when she turned 15. I agreed to buy her tickets $65, give her enough for an official t-shirt at the concert, about $12 or $15, and she would repay me $100 to help cover a small portion of the gasoline from the 2 drives. The concert was a couple months after that, around St. Patrick's Day, and we had a good time. I bought us drinks at the gas station and fast food on the way home. Her birthday was in April and she promised to start job hunting soon, with plans to start work early June. By the time June came, she announced being pregnant at 15. We talked about the money, but she said the morning sickness was debilitating and she couldn't work. The next summer I reminded her again, but she had to stay home and watch her daughter plus babysit for a cousin. She got next to nothing in child support. The boy was her age with no income, and she couldn't pay me again. Christmas rolled around and someone gifted her $500, but she had to buy all this baby stuff. The summer she was 17, she was pregnant again. Different dad, and they got married. 30 years later, she's had 3 marriages, 5 kids. Her oldest son and her second ex have both spent time in jail. Her kids are out of the house but come back frequently to do laundry and mooch groceries. Someone gave her a single wide. The family helped her fix it up, and it's now placed behind her mom's house so she lives rent-free. She drives a late model used minivan. I quit asking about the money 5 or 6 years after she loaned it to me. I resented it because I earned that money working on my feet. I'd come home at the end of an 8-hour shift and my feet would be swollen, and I'd be mentally wiped out from being nice to jerks all day long. At $3.35/$4.25 an hour, this represented several days' worth of hard work. I live in another state now, but my parents are older and have early Parkinson's and diabetes. I'm visiting from another state, spending 6 weeks from Thanksgiving to New Year's. My cousin now works at the Feed and Seed. This is a gas station where you can buy bags of horse and cow feed, dog and cat food, and a few basic grocery and home items. There's a grill with basic food, burgers, corn dogs, potato logs, made-to-order breakfasts. Nothing healthy, nearly everything fried. It's not exactly like a restaurant. You order at the cashier and pay, then make your own drink, and when the food is up, the cook passes it through a window to you. There are 2 mason jars with the names of the 2 cooks, and about half the people don't tip. I usually tip $3 on a $10 meal. Once you have your food, there are 4 indoor booths to sit in, plus picnic tables in the back with some metal loops for people to tie their horses to. Very, very rural. I don't tip my cousin. If she's the one who made the food, I don't tip her. I've been there maybe 6 times in the past month, and about 4 of the times I was there, she happened to be my cook, so that's about $12 I would have tipped if it was anyone else. She obviously noticed and asked me about it. Remember the $100 you owe me? I'm taking it from that. My cousin didn't say anything, but she went home and complained to her mother, late 60s female. Her mother complained to my parents, 75 female and 78 male. My mother promised her I would make it right, and chewed me out for not letting go of something that happened about 30 years ago. I pointed out she never once tried to help me get the money back. She bought them expensive baby gifts, takes those 5 kids and some of the cousins to the mall, camping, and even on some road trips to the beach. They've never once bought gifts for my daughter. This was a low blow because she died 4 years ago and is a sensitive topic for all of us, and that they never bought gifts for my nieces. She's easily spent a few $1,000s on their family over the years, and the money only flows one way. That it's okay for my parents to voluntarily make this choice, but I never consented to simply give her a week of my part-time salary, and Mom should have stood up for me. I also pointed out that Mom knew what a terrible track record their branch of the family had for not repaying debts, because they borrowed money about once a year from my parents, and didn't pay it back often enough. But Mom hid that information from me until I was in my 30s. At 17, I had no reason to be on guard, but Mom knew all kinds of red flags. Dad thought I had a point and told Mom to stay out of it. He said I could handle it however I wanted. When I went back to the feed and seed for breakfast this morning, my cousin had a smug look on her face when she passed the food over and looked annoyed that I dropped nothing in her jar. Updates. I haven't been actively holding a grudge for 30 years. Although we were close as kids, I only see this cousin every few years, and can go years at a time without thinking about the $100. I haven't been obsessing this like Gollum in the Ring, but occasionally Mom would mention they went Black Friday shopping and my cousin got a new 65-inch TV, and it would just irk me a little. No rage, just annoyance. My cousin and I don't hate each other. We've done several favors for each other even after this started. A few days ago, I took her some extra eggs for my dad's chickens, and tomorrow I'm giving her granddaughter a ride to a thing at her church she wants to go to. Last week, my cousin invited me over to help her make Christmas jam with some frozen berries and gave me a jar. She didn't say a word about the tip thing, and neither did I. My junior high gym teacher coach owns and runs the Feed and Seed. Good guy, very popular, and a big stickler for cleanliness. The floors and bathrooms are always clean, and people come out regularly to wipe down counters, the drink station, and booths. He would fire anyone who tampered with food, and I can't imagine her doing that. Besides, while she might be able to hide something like that on a burger, I don't see how she could sabotage fried eggs and hash browns in a way that her colleagues wouldn't see, and would be undetectable to me. I think both are to blame for this situation, because the cousin could repay her debt. IOP could not be so petty. But on the wrong side, then we would not have to read this interesting story. It's understandable that you feel resentful about the money not being paid back, especially since you worked hard for it. As for not tipping your cousin, well, that's one way to get your money back, I suppose. Maybe next time you can just ask for a discount instead. Or better yet, bring up the $100 owed every time you order food from her. But in all seriousness, it's important to remember that family is family, and sometimes we have to forgive and forget. Maybe one day your cousin will surprise you by paying you back, or doing something nice for you that doesn't involve money. And who knows, maybe you'll even find it in your heart to leave a tip for her someday. The next story is, salesman won't tell us the car prices. I was car shopping with my dad many years ago. We're both in construction, so we're dressed in somewhat rugged clothing at the time. My dad also has a heavy Indian accent, so usually experiences far more racism than I do. We were in a Toyota dealership, and seemed to be reluctantly greeted by an older white salesman that obviously wasn't happy to see us. My dad is asking about a Tundra pickup truck, and the guy just keeps on telling him it's very expensive. My dad is pressing more and more, and the sales guy is practically steering him to the smaller model truck because it's more affordable. My dad's frustrated, so I start asking about the hybrid Highlander, fairly new technology at the time, and the sales guy is shocked that I'd even dare ask about such an expensive car. Wouldn't sit down with us to talk about packages and pricing, just dismissed me as a guy that could never afford it. We walked away and said goodbye to the guy, and he was happy to leave us alone. We didn't leave though, and we were approached by another salesman in a few minutes asking if we needed any help. 30 minutes later, we're both ready to sign paperwork for a new high-end Tundra, a new mid and high-end hybrid Highlander. I had been approved already for financing, and my dad was buying his truck outright. The original salesman finally noticed us, and interrupted the process to tell the sales manager that we were his clients, presumably for commission reasons. We were patient and quiet up to this point, but my dad and I looked at each other and were ready for some revenge. I started to calmly let him and the sales manager know how rude and condescending he was by refusing to take us seriously, and not even telling us the pricing of the vehicles. He denied it, and my dad stood up yelling at him about being racist, about our family running a multi-million-dollar company. We build and sell about 3 to 5 houses a year, so $2 million is still technically multi-million, huh? And just going off on the guy. My dad ended up tearing his check in pieces and throwing it in the garbage. The old salesman actually took an angry step forward towards my dad, and I stood up to my full 6'5" height and asked if he was seriously trying to physically threaten my father. It was utter pandemonium. The sales manager took the original salesman outside the office, and the second salesman joined them. We could see everything through the glass walls everywhere, and the manager was freaking out at him, while the second salesman seemed to be confirming that everything we said was true. The sales manager came back with the owner of the dealership, who unbeknownst to us also happened to be Indian. The owner apologized profusely, then him and my dad spoke with each other in Punjabi. I could keep up enough to know my dad was retelling the story of our experience, and then afterwards doing some wheeling and dealing again. We walked out of there with new and even better deals on each of our cars, and I made fun of my dad for not knowing that an Indian guy owned the dealership. As we walked out, the original salesman apologized profusely to us, but we kept walking. When we came back a few days later to get our new vehicle, we were told the original salesman was fired, and we felt zero guilt about it. That salesman really missed out on a commission by being a condescending jerk. Did he think that rugged clothing and an Indian accent automatically means you can't afford a high-end car? Maybe he thought you were there to borrow the car for construction work, not buy it. Huh? But hey, it all worked out in the end, right? You got even better deals on your cars, and that salesman got what he deserved. It's like the universe was on your side. And how about that Indian owner of the dealership? Talk about a plot twist. Maybe he saw himself in your dad and wanted to make things right. Or maybe he just wanted to sell some cars. Either way, it's a good thing you got what you wanted. Everything worked out in the end, and the dad got to show that salesman who's boss. And who knows, maybe that salesman is still out there somewhere, kicking himself for not taking those construction workers seriously. The last story is, block the road, we'll block you in your house. Our neighbors across the street from us are very loud and very obnoxious. The guy and his wife have about 4 kids, and they're always causing some sort of trouble, which ends up with arguments or fighting in the middle of the road, with people asking for money from him or saying he owes them things. One argument even led to his van being set on fire at 3 a.m. Recently, we've been having road work for electrical issues along our road, and they had just finished the side of the street where we lived. As the workmen were coming to pack away their barriers and gear, one of our obnoxious neighbor's friends showed up in their big white van. Both him and all his friends seem to have big white vans, and always park on the wrong side of the road for hours at a time next to each other to talk, blocking either half or all the road off. As the barriers were all along one side of the road, traffic was only able to get down to the opposite side, so he had essentially blocked off the only access down this road, which the workmen needed to move their trucks. They sat there for a good half hour, not moving for the workmen even though they were asked to, but finally moved along a while later. The day after, work was due to start on the opposite side of the road, their side. As you can probably tell from the title, the workman put up barriers all down that side of the street and divided off his house from the road, as well as putting a barrier right in front of his gate so there was no way for him to get in or out of the house. They all seemed pretty pleased with themselves, and an obnoxious neighbor was super annoyed and ended up having to park his van a street away from his house. Roadworks crew finally found a way to get some revenge on the obnoxious neighbors. They blocked off their house instead of the road. Maybe this will teach them a lesson to not block the road anymore. Who knows? Maybe they'll start parking their big white vans in their own garage instead of on the street. But if not, maybe the Roadworks crew will just have to barricade them in their house permanently. At least then they won't be causing any more trouble out on the street. Don't forget to hit the like button and have a good day.